What's going on, good people? Here are two things I learned from a billionaire.
And we back.
Hey, what's going on, good people? Thank you for blessing me with your presence. I do not take lightly you being here. YouTube is filled with so many fascinating things for you to step foot on here. I appreciate you. So I want to talk about two specific things that I learned from this interview that I was fortunate to sit in on with Dan Kathy. So back in the summer, I attended the Earn Your Leisure conference, and it was filled with so many entrepreneurs, with an attendance of about 12,000 individuals there. At least 65% of them were business owners, right? So not just owning LLCs, but actually executing their business and walking on their path. And there were three interviews that stood out to me. One was with Steve Harvey. The other was with Tyler Perry. And then the last one that I sat in on was with Dan Kathy. Dan Kathy being worth $7.1 billion and also the chairperson for Chick-fil-A. Now, I don't want to get caught up in the net worth. Net worth is astounding. I get that, but I don't want to get caught up in that. There was one running trend across all the different interviews, across all three interviews, and that was principles. The top lesson I learned from listening to those conversations is that your principles are so vital and they have to be foundational, because those principles is what sets your course moving forward. When you have a strong sense of principles that you're going to abide by, it sets the tone for what you say yes to and what you say no to. So I'll give you an example. Before I got hired by Amazon, I had to go through 2 loop interviews. And this is public information. You could actually YouTube the interview process. But Amazon has 14 strong leadership principles. And anytime you get interviewed by Amazon, they bounce your experience, your resume, off of these 14 principles. And there's anything that misaligns, you don't get hired by them. And that's why their structure is so tough. In fact, the last numbers I read was about 2% of all individuals that apply for Amazon get hired. So just think about that. 98% of the individuals that are trying to work for this top company don't get hired because their resume don't, or at least their story does not align by their principles. So one of the things I'm trying to challenge myself is that, especially with my wife, is that setting these principles and setting these boundaries based on these principles are driving success for all these other individuals, why don't we do the same thing? And the big thing that I learned from these conferences and from the conversations that we had, it's not about just establishing these principles, but it's about documenting them and writing them down and making them clear. So you could actually go back to it in the case you have to meditate on it and revisit it. And taking heed to this, my wife and I got together and we did the same exercise. So we got together and documented what we feel as though we need to establish as far as our principles in our household. And I'm going to mention one. We have a total of 5, but the one that I think is the catalyst of all these different things is whatever doesn't bring us joy, we don't do. So what that does is foundationally, that's the baseline of what we say yes to and what we say no to. And the reason why we identify that one is because we're moving into this new season that if it doesn't bring a fresh perspective or if it doesn't bring joy to us, we're not doing it. So that's why it's so vital for us to have our established principles so we know what to say yes to and what to say no to. So I challenge anyone that's listening to this in your households, especially just looking at my audience base. I know 75% of the people that actually listen to this are actually men and actually married men around my same age. Look at your household and understand the principles that you need to establish in your household in order for you to make sure that you're setting the right tone and the right atmosphere for your family. So I pray that this blesses you. And once again, man, I just share these things for like purely transparency. And hopefully it offers some type of a fresh perspective on anyone else who's out there trying to do some good work.